All right, let's dive in. Today, we're unpacking a truly wild story of financial crime coming out of Iraq. And what's so fascinating is how it connects, these dusty old ledgers and forged invoices with this super modern, brightly lit world of social media influencers. So let's start with the most modern and honestly pretty unexpected front in Iraq's ongoing battle against money laundering. I think you're going to be surprised where this latest threat is really popping up. So, take a guess. Who do you think this high-risk group is? The usual suspects, corrupt officials, maybe arms dealers. Well, the actual answer, it's probably not what you're thinking. Yup, social media influencers. It's true. Iraq's central bank, the CBI, has actually officially classified them as a high-risk group for money laundering and even for financing terrorism. It's just a crazy sign of how fast financial crime evolves, right? It's always finding these new weak spots, in this case, the whole creator economy. So what exactly is the CBI looking for? Well, there are some really specific red flags. Think about things like fundraising for so-called charities, where the cause is really just a front for dirty money. Or they're on the lookout for a sudden, massive jump in followers. That just doesn't make sense. That can be a tactic to pump up an influencer's value right before a shady deal goes down. They're also watching for paid promos from sketchy sources, luxury splurges that don't match up with what someone's supposedly earning, or even just using accounts of friends and family to shuffle money around. All of these things are potential ways to wash illicit cash behind this glossy online personality. But here's the thing, and this is really the key to the whole story. To get why influencers are suddenly on the radar, we have to rewind. I'm talking more than a decade back. Because this super modern problem, it's actually built on the foundations of a huge, kind of old school scam. And that right there brings us to the core of it all, a system known as the dollar auction. For years, this thing was just systematically ripped off to siphon billions, literally billions, out of the country. Okay, so what even was this dollar auction? Well, on paper, it made a ton of sense. The idea was simple. The Central Bank of Iraq would sell US dollars to local banks. This was supposed to do two things: keep the Iraqi currency, the dinar, nice and stable, and help real businesses pay for actual goods they were importing. And that's the key word right there, isn't it? Legitimate. Now look at this number, 80%. What do you think that represents? Any ideas? Yeah, that 80%, that's the absolutely staggering scale of this problem. Way back in 2012, a report to the US Congress found that an Iraqi audit had uncovered that 80% of the roughly $1 billion being auctioned off, not per year, but every single week, was connected to fraud and money laundering. It's just mind-boggling. And look, this wasn't some one-off warning that got missed. In 2012, you had the U.S. Inspector General flagging it. Then in 2015, the U.S. Federal Reserve got involved because they were worried the money was actually funding ISIS. And by 2018, a U.S. Special Envoy basically said the auction was a key financial lifeline for the Assad regime in Syria. So the alarm bells were ringing loud and clear year after year. So the big question is, how did they pull this off? I mean, how do you steal billions of dollars right in broad daylight using an official government program? Well, the crazy part is, it was shockingly simple. It all came down to a pretty simple four-step process. First, a bank would apply for US dollars, but they'd use fake invoices for stuff that was never going to be shipped because it didn't even exist. Step two, Iraq's central bank would stamp it approved, and the New York Fed would release the funds. Third, the money gets wired out. But, and here's the whole trick, it didn't go to any suppliers. Nope. Instead, that cash was funneled into this huge network of exchange houses and different accounts, and poof, it basically vanished. Let's make this real with an actual case. Al Huda Bank. Investigators dug into 3 years of their records. The bank said it was financing imports for 32 different companies. Sounds legit, right? Except it turns out that 29 of those companies weren't even officially registered. They were ghosts. And through this phantom network, they siphoned off something like $6.5 billion. And a 2015 fraud report from an Iraqi politician named Ahmed Chalavi, well, he didn't mince words. He wrote that the owner of Al Huda Bank, a guy named Hamad al-Musawi, just used forged documents to grab the dollars and then funneled it all into another company that, surprise, surprise, he himself owned and controlled completely. But wait, it gets better. Or worse, depending on how you look at it. This same guy, Hamad al-Mosawi, the owner of the bank at the very center of this massive fraud, was later elected to Iraq's parliament. And what committee did he join? You guessed it, an anti-corruption committee. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. The irony is off the charts. Okay, so this brings up the most critical question in all of this, because this wasn't just about a few guys getting rich. So where did all that laundered money, all those billions of dollars, actually go? And the answer is what turns this from just a financial crime story into a full-blown global security crisis. The money trail led to some pretty terrifying places. It was used to fund the Islamic State. It helped prop up the Assad regime in Syria. It flowed to Iranian interests, including the IRGC. It even made its way to Houthi financiers in Yemen. So you see, this wasn't just fraud. It was literally fuel for conflicts all across the region. So you have to wonder, why didn't someone shut this down sooner? Well, according to Iraq's former finance minister, Ali Alawi, for a long time, a lot of international observers just kind of shrugged. The attitude was almost like, boys will be boys, what's new, Iraq is corrupt. And that apathy, that feeling of, business as usual, is exactly what let this thing fester and grow into the multi-billion-dollar monster it became. And that brings us full circle, right back to where we began. We've seen the old crime in all its grimy detail, so now let's connect the dots to its brand new disguise. When you put them side by side, it's incredible. The playbook is almost identical. The dollar auction, it used forged invoices for fake goods. The influencer scheme, it uses fake contracts for promos that never actually happen, all to justify a big payment. The auction used shell companies to hide who owned what. Influencers can use proxy accounts, accounts in the names of friends or family, to muddy the waters. At the end of the day, both schemes are built to do the exact same thing: hide who's really getting the money. The methods are the same, it's just the players and the platforms that have changed. So ultimately, it doesn't matter if it's a stack of forged shipping papers or a flashy influencer's Instagram post. The core technique is exactly the same. It's all about creating this believable front, this facade of legitimacy, so you can move dirty money right through the system without setting off any alarms. And all of this leaves us with one last big question. We've seen that financial crime is just incredibly adaptable, right? It's moved from the bank teller's window to the government auction house, and now it's on our social media feeds. So as these criminals get better and better at exploiting every new piece of tech that comes along, you have to ask, can the people trying to stop them, the regulators, the rule makers, can they ever really keep up?